So in our last talk, Seeing the Ox, we discussed the experience of a moment of no self, when the self just falls away and there's just perception, no thoughts. And that's generally, that's a meditation experience. And over the years after that first experience, it will continue to deepen and become more clear, more familiar, not so special. Our natural wisdom is awakened at that moment, and it becomes more available to us. So we continue to sit. The fourth picture depicts the struggle between our awakened nature and our ego. We have a very strong attachment to ourself, our small self. And our old conditioning keeps pulling us back into the material world. And it tells us falsehoods. Our old conditioning tells us that we'll be happier if we're rich. We'll be happier if we're famous. We have to struggle and strive to attain and to achieve. It tells us that we can be safe if we just save enough money, put enough away. Our ox holding wisdom knows that this is all false. Fame and wealth are empty. Empty. They don't really bring happiness. Nothing can keep us safe. 9/11 was a really good example. Those of us who live in the US think we're safe, unlike people who live in Syria, for example, who know they're not safe. But suddenly our delusion was cut through, and we realized that we too are not safe. The world is not safe. We just have an illusion that we cling to that we can be safe. Bad things happen, death is certain, but our ox wisdom guides us to live fully in the present moment and savor each instant of life. We're continually pulled away from this by our passions and our desires. So I want to read you the text that goes with this picture. It's on the back of the picture. Today, you chanced upon it, so long hidden in the wilds. But you can't keep up with its high spirit, and it won't give up its love of sweet grass. Ever more willful, as wild as ever. If you want to tame it, you must lay on the whip. That's the preface. And then there's a verse that goes with it. With your last ounce of strength, you take it, but stubborn and strong, it won't be broken. Now it suddenly climbs to high ground. Then it descends to vanish deep into mist. Gone again. And the waka means poetry, thinking only, ox, ox, don't let go. Just this is the real fetter. So just flip it over and take another look at the picture. And you can see the immensity of this ox that we're trying to catch, and how small we are in comparison. So these verses catch the flavor of the strength of the battle between the ego and awakened mind. Awakened mind clearly sees into the emptiness of all of our desires. We want to be important, we want to be loved, we want to be admired. all of those are empty. But we're constantly overtaken by these desires, these passions. I remember coming back from retreats. I used to do a lot of week-long retreats. I would come back and I would begin to think of myself in my retreat self, my sesshin self, as having cushion fantasies that I could see into the emptiness of this material pole. At that time I had a job in the corporate world, and I'd spend my corporate life, struggling with political struggles and managing people, and just a lot of material issues would come up. Raises, not getting a raise, being evaluated, not liking the evaluation, or loving the evaluation. That's just as big a trap, Being told I'm doing a great job. Well, I'm just going to keep doing it, right? This feels good. But it's empty. And even if it goes well for a while, I guarantee you it will stop going well and go badly for a while. So the material world, this world out here that we live, is full of ups and downs, full of struggle and striving and wanting. But our awakened mind sees the emptiness, but it can't always hold on to that emptiness. You see the emptiness, and you still want the achievement. You still want more money. The desire for more money is truly endless. You never have enough. It's amazing. So I wasn't exactly confused, but I could see. I remember seeing, this contrast between the happy me, the joyful me in sesshin, versus the struggling me in the world of work. And I would ask myself, which one is real? Can the sesshin mind, can that sesshin person be real? Sesshin is a word for retreat that we use. Can that be real? Could I really be that peaceful and happy all the time? Or is this real, the struggle and the holding on to all my desires and trying to realize them and being caught up in the ups and downs of that life? So when I was back at work, how was it possible to imagine letting go of all of that? I had responsibilities, I had family to support. I needed my job. I couldn't yet hold it lightly. But still, awakened mind kept pulling me back to the sweet grass of sitting, which was where I felt my true home was. Each retreat became a coming home to myself, which was real. And what did I even mean by real? I remember I did a retreat where I was, trying to remember, I think I was going to get fired. I could see it coming way far away, I could see it coming. A lot of politics. And I was wondering what to do with myself, because I didn't really want to go get another corporate job. Somehow I wanted something that was going to connect me to my practice. And I spent this whole retreat making lists of, how much money I could do without, lists of why I should let go of this corporate world, where it had a fair amount of success, which was a problem. This was a solo retreat. I just took a cabin and went up for a week by myself. And I actually got to the point where I could see pretty clearly I could let go of it until I got home. So I was sitting this whole retreat working on changing my life, making this major shift. It felt like, any of you boaters, have you ever tried to turn a boat? It takes so much longer than it takes to turn a car. If you're driving a tanker, it takes that's what it felt like, turning my direction. And I was very identified with my job. It wasn't just a minor part of my life. I remember at the very beginning of my practice life, I was afraid if I started meditating, that someday I would just end up on a mountaintop sitting in a grass hut, perfectly at peace, and I would have, I think something like wasted my life was what came into my mind. So looking back on this is just amazing to me, because it's like awakened mind was there right at the very beginning. I hadn't started to meditate yet, I was just contemplating it. And I could see that there was a possibility of sitting on a mountaintop with nothing in my grass hut, perfectly happy. Just me and the birds and the animals. And at the same time, all of my old conditioning, my parents had great expectations for me. I'd been a really good student, I had lots of good things that happened in my life. They all pointed me in this other direction. That was exactly the whole struggle, right there in that little cup. I was locked into my life plan to acquire material things. Giving that up at that time was inconceivable. But what joy there is in letting go of the material world and experiencing the oneness. It's a quiet joy. It's a peaceful joy. It's deep happiness. How much happiness does the material world really bring us? How much? Moments. We have moments of kind of ego exaltation, right? God, that went well. And then somebody makes a critical remark, and we're completely deflated, completely deflated. We win or we lose in the material world. We're constantly comparing ourselves to others, our families to others, our possessions to others' possessions. Such a trap. We're measured, evaluated, rejected, judged, shamed, humiliated, all of which we fear. And that fear keeps us going. But that's not really fun. It's not fun. We want praise, recognition, veneration. Those are all traps too. Here one moment, gone the next. It's such a quick drop from praise and veneration to humiliation and shame. It's just like that. Only reminding ourselves over and over of the emptiness of all of that will bring us any hope of staying on this path. It's very important to practice mindfulness, the paramitas, and the precepts during this phase. Because awakened mind is still fragile. And we need the strength of our will, of our agency, to keep us practicing. That's a really important thing to remember. We practice the precepts and they become who we are, but in the beginning, we're really working with them. We're really facing ourselves and our dark stuff, great dark stuff. Do we kill? Do we steal? Do we lie? I remember clearly thinking, well, I don't do any of those. Until I started looking. And then I discovered I did all of them. I did all of them. And all the other 12 as well. So these practices, the precepts, the paramitas, and mindfulness are our whip. It takes effort at this point to maintain our practice on and off the cushion. Awakened mind is still budding, but it hasn't yet bloomed. It needs the support of our practice. It needs that to deepen the experience of oneness, to really get clear. We have to hold on to the rope of the ox in order to keep him. And the rope is our practice. We bounce from peak to abyss. We sit and we experience the oneness, the high ground, the joy. We stand up off the cushion and fall into the mists of delusion, just like that. Greed, anger, and ignorance, never too far. And yet, holding on to our awakened mind is also a fetter, a really big sticking place. You say, I got it. I don't need to practice now. I saw it so clearly. It's with me. It's who I am. But it's not. That sticking place is just as bad as the material world, because you've turned an instant of seeing clearly into a thing. And now it's something solid. We can get very stuck in the idea that we have experienced enlightenment or kensho. Letting go of that, we just practice. And we trust the process to proceed at its own pace. Things fall away, awakened mind arises. Things solidify, trapping us in their embrace. Awakened mind disappears. Where even to apply the whip? So I found this poem, which I thought was really appropriate. I couldn't find the attribution. I couldn't find who wrote it or where I found it. It was just sort of stuck in something I read, and I copied it and saved it. And I don't even know what it was I read. But whoever had included it hadn't attributed it. So here it is. I'm going to share it. If somebody recognizes it, let me know and I'll attribute it properly. Fear nothing except the failure to experience your true nature. Speak nothing unless you have lived it first. The joy is simply in the being, not being this or that. The soft and supple are the companions of life, while the stiff and unyielding are the companions of death. Surrender brings perfection. Embrace emptiness, and the whole world is yours.